latest figures, so we've got to make sure...
years to come up with some ideas on this, and we have. We've got We've got a workforce plan for the NHS. We've got a workforce plan for social care.
You don't have a workforce plan for social care.
It will inform a vote on the floor of the House of Commons from your democratically elected representatives. We'll be able to cap the visas.
It is absolute rubbish. You've had
talk about the issues that the question of
net migration has gone up.
You have no idea. You have no workforce strategy. You have no industrial strategy. You have no
Are you talking to me or Rishi?
Thank you.
Are you talking to me or Rishi? Because that is exactly...
You have been in an election campaign. What's your plan?
Thank you.
You haven't got one.
Thank you, Angela Rayner. Stephen Flynn.
Follow that.
Angela Rayner faced a brutal backlash as a hostile audience turned against her in a heated interview, leaving her struggling to defend herself. Here's what went down.
I'd like to actually ask the members of Parliament that are present on the panel what part of democracy they don't actually understand. Parliament had a ballot, did it not, in order to have the referendum. They voted 6-1 to have the ballot. You took that ballot, you took the chance, we had the referendum, you didn't get the answer that you wanted, and now you want to turn it round. I didn't vote.
The room was full as BBC's Question Time continued. Angela Rayner sat on the panel, ready to defend Labour's decisions. Then, a single question shifted the tone. A man in the audience, frustrated with the political talk, stood up and challenged her on democracy, his voice calm but firm. The atmosphere changed. It was more than a disagreement, it was a direct challenge.
Government, can I have a ballot?
Can I answer your question? I mean, what I was saying, and my clarity is that I'm not saying, and I'm not suggesting we ignore the vote. The vote is quite clear. But as a Member of Parliament, I have a responsibility for Britich jobs, British workers, and for our public service, and to support that. So you need clarity that we're going to safeguard that.
No. All right.
Sorry, your job is to represent the public, the people who elect you. Start doing your job. If you don't like it, clear off. Simple as that.
Applause filled the studio as people nodded and cheered. It wasn't just about the question. It reflected growing frustration among voters who felt ignored. He voiced what many were already thinking.
She and I have never really met, certainly never spoken to each other, despite being in this house together for 7 years. We have some things in common, not much. We were both born in 1980, although I'm older and wiser than she is. People often think we're both much younger than we really are, because we've got such great skin and good hair. And we're both known as being quite feisty.
Rayner's expression stiffened. She gave a slight laugh, shifting in her seat, but the reaction unsettled her. Instead of answering directly, she deflected, steering the conversation elsewhere. A typical political move. But it didn't land. The audience saw it for what it was, a politician struggling to defend the system she represented. In that moment, the power wasn't hers, it was with the people.
Is one of the most powerful women in Westminster, with a reputation of being fiery and outspoken.
But getting to her senior political position hasn't been easy, not just because of her gender, but because also of her working-class background.
Well, to tell us about life as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, we're joined now by Angela Rayner. Good morning and welcome. It's lovely to have you here. It's funny because you see you in Westminster doing your job, carrying out your role. I didn't actually know too much about your background until I read this, and I'm not sure, I mean, a lot of people will do, but a lot of people won't. But it was that background and your upbringing that really shaped you, who you are as you sit here on the sofa today.
Yeah, and it was crazy when I first went into Parliament because, you know, the whole building is like going to Hogwarts. It's a bit surreal, you know, and I still think that, you know, when I stand at the dispatch box and you think of the people that have stood there and been there before me, it's a bit like, wow, I'm here and I'm doing this, you know, so it does feel a bit surreal from growing up on a council estate and, you know, having my son at 16 and basically, you know, being very poor and having very big challenges. years, and then all of a sudden mixing with people who went to private education, who have got loads of wealth. And I remember having a joke once with one of the MPs talking about the issues on our estate because there was horses churning up the grass on the estate. And he went, oh, we have llamas on our estate. I'm like, no, I'm talking about the council estate. and the horses that were just left in the wild. So it was a bit, you know, those moments where two worlds collide.
When you left school at 16, you were told that you wouldn't amount to anything.
Yeah.
What was life like for you then, and life at home?
You see, this is the thing, because in Parliament, people do see me as quite brash and quite confident, but part of the reason I'm like that is because when I was 16 and I was pregnant, the shame and the humiliation that people made me feel, like, you know, institutions of government, you know, doctors, police, they were there above you and they were there to do things and you had to keep order. They weren't people like you.
Yes.
So I always felt, know your place. So I felt that humiliation and shame then. So now I'm like, no, I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud of the people that I represent and the people that I grew up with. So now I don't have any cares about speaking my mind and being, because everyone's got unique talents. It doesn't matter where they're from, whether...
Angela Rayner often highlights her working class roots. It's central to her image as Labour's voice of the people. But when pressed on who those people are, she struggles to answer. She often claims she's not like other politicians, that she speaks and acts differently. By showing her human side, she says, she becomes more relatable and helps people understand her better.
What is the Deputy Prime Minister's definition of working people?
The definition of working people are the people that the Tory party have failed for the last 14 years.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister stood on a manifesto promising not to raise taxes on working people. It now appears she can't even define who working people are. So I'll give her another go. There are 5 million small business owners in this country. Are they working people?
I don't know how the shadow Deputy Prime Minister can stand there with a straight face when it was the small businesses, the working people of this country that paid the price of them crashing the economy, sending interest rates scoring. I think he needs to learn his own lessons in opposition.
Oliver Downer! Well, I think the whole House will have heard the Deputy Prime Minister disregard 5 million hard-working small business owners.
In Parliament, she's been asked more than once to define a working person. A simple question, but not for Rayner. She dodged, stumbled and avoided a clear answer, resorting to vague points about fairness and opportunity. Here's the issue. Labour presents itself as the party of the working class. But if its deputy leader can't define the very people they claim to represent, how can they fight for them? It's not just embarrassing, it says a lot.
The Labour Party is very keen to reduce class sizes to under 30 for 5, 6 and 7-year-olds. Why is that important?
Well, the last Labour government managed to achieve this for the younger class sizes, and it's transformative because if the class sizes are too big, then children are either the children that are you know, not as loud as others will get lost in the system, or those that have behavioural problems will not get the support that they need. We know that the evidence is that class sizes over 30 do affect the attainment and the learning for all children in the classroom. So it's important for the outcomes for children to make sure they get the education they deserve.
How many children are we talking about? How many children are taught in classes that size?
Well, there's variants in terms of class sizes over 30 and those that there's even some that are over 40, to be quite honest with you, and there's quite a substantial...
What number of pupils are we talking about?
Well, there's quite a substantial amount of pupils that are... I haven't got the numbers on me at hand, Nick, but it is quite a substantial amount of children that are in class sizes that are over 30 now.
Are we, Angela Rayner, are we talking about 50 children, 5,000 children, 5 million children? I mean, how many are we talking about?
It's a significant number. It's not 500 or 5,000. It's significant.
You've said that 3 times. Do you not think it would be an idea to have a sense of how many children we're talking about? You are the Shadow Education Secretary.
Yeah, well, I do have a sense of that, but I don't have the figures.
Could you give me the number then, please?
People see what's happening, the rising cost of living, job insecurity and taxes hitting the middle and lower classes hardest. They don't need a definition of a working person, they live it. Rayner, however, only talks about it, and that's the real issue. She didn't just dodge the question, she had no answer at all. For someone who claims to stand for ordinary people, that says it all.
You describe yourself as working class. Sakir, define working class.
No, working class is families that work for their living, earn their money through going out to work every day, not through other means.
Middle classes do that?
Well, working class families have the ordinary hope to get on in life. I mean, this has been the story.
Middle classes have that?
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do.
So what's the distinction?
People will say to me, "Well, look here. You've come a long way.
Yeah, but you went to state school.
Yeah, but that is the ordinary hope of the working class, which is to have a decent education, to get a decent, secure job, to get a car, to get have a nice holiday, to have a house.
Isn't that the middle class too, Sakir? Everything you just listed? No?
It is. Yeah, it is. And that's why many people go on their life journey from what you might call working class to middle class.
In Parliament, she was directly asked if the UK's 5 million small business owners count as working people. Her response? A deflection. An attack on the Conservatives, anything but a clear answer. And that's the problem. Labour claims to support struggling families, but their economic policies often do the opposite. Higher taxes, rising costs, and decisions made from offices far removed from the realities of everyday Britons. Critics say Rayner has become part of the political bubble she once opposed. The Angela Rayner who once spoke for working people now seems out of touch. And working-class voters are starting to notice. Democracy means elections, unless Labour is in charge. In a move that sparked national outrage, Labour cancelled elections in key areas, specifically where Reform UK was gaining support. The outcome? 5.5 million people lost their right to vote. This wasn't just bureaucracy, it was a calculated move. Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, has been gaining support, particularly among working-class voters Labour once counted on. Instead of competing fairly, Labour shut it down. No elections, no votes, no opportunity for the opposition to rise. People were outraged. Critics called it a direct attack on democracy, Labour acting more like authoritarians than a party that trusts the voters. Debating policies is one thing, blocking people from having a say in their future is another. Angela Rayner is bold when addressing Labour supporters, but under tough questioning the cracks appear. In a tense exchange with BBC's Laura Koonsberg, she struggled to defend Labour's shifting policies. Instead of clear answers, she relied on contradictions, vague responses and political spin. The issue? Even friendly journalists expose her weaknesses. If she can't handle tough questions in an interview, how can she handle leading a country? With every unconvincing answer, her credibility takes another hit. At this rate, Labour's credibility could be next. The UK's housing crisis is already severe. Families waiting years for council homes, soaring rents and rising homelessness. So when Angela Rayner and Labour pushed policies giving priority to migrants for council housing, it struck a nerve. For years, British citizens have been stuck on waiting lists, struggling to secure a home. They've paid taxes, worked hard and followed the rules. Yet Labour's plan would prioritise new arrivals while locals remain in limbo. The reaction wasn't just frustration, it was outrage.
Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has given permission for 6 councils so far to increase their council taxes, which is going to affect millions of households.
From April, people will see up to a 10% hike in their bills.
Critics called it a betrayal of working-class Brits, the very people Labour claims to represent. Rayner tried to spin it, using words like fairness, human rights and inclusivity. But no political rhetoric can change reality. The public sees what's happening, and with every unfair policy, Labour's credibility takes another hit. Angela Rayner began as Labour's firebrand, a working-class voice meant to connect with ordinary people. But now, with each misstep, her credibility is fading.
The government, let's talk about the fact that they were well aware of what happened, or what could happen at Grenfell, and they failed to act. What is this government going to do?
Well, first of all, reading Sir Martin's summary and the volumes that he's collated, the failures were systemic. Absolutely everybody
whether it was the regulator, whether it was those that had the materials, whether it was the government, whether it was the council, the tenant management organiser, every single layer failed to recognise and to protect those residents at Grenfell, and it is absolutely shocking to see that. And this government has got to make sure that we accelerate remediation. I've looked at it and I'm not happy with the pace that we're at the moment, and we've got to look at the 58 recommendations that Sir Martin has come forward and make sure that we do everything we can to meet those and go beyond to ensure that people are confident that one of the things that was really striking to me was that greed.
She's been challenged on live TV, failed to define working people, dodged tough interviews and backed controversial policies. The damage keeps piling up. Voters who once saw her as a strong leader now see someone struggling to defend her own party. And this isn't just about Rayner, it's about Labour as a whole. If they keep ignoring voters, pushing unpopular policies and silencing opposition, the backlash won't stop at the media, it'll be at the ballot box. Rayner's future looks uncertain, Labour's even more so. If they don't course correct soon, the next election could be brutal, and this time the voters will decide. Like and subscribe to the channel and watch more contents like this here.